Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche podcast. We've got Big E, we've got J Mike, and we got Rudo coming to you live on a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday, right? Yeah, it's a Tuesday. Off season, draft week. We'll get into a little bit of a draft conversation at some point, but we also want to talk NHL expansion. I mean, I don't know that we want to talk NHL expansion, but we have to talk NHL expansion because it continues to be a topic that swirls around the NHL as a whole. There have been rumors for a little while now that the NHL could be looking to expand up to 40 teams, that's a lot of teams. I'm not going to lie to you. That's a lot of hockey teams to go around. We'll dive into that conversation. Obviously, the two everyone expects to be coming are Houston and Atlanta again. It seems like there have been some other cities that have had their names thrown around. Obviously, Quebec City is always around, though we talked about that before on the show, maybe more likely for a relocation than an expansion. Kansas City's name has been thrown out there before. There are other ones as well, but let's start here. I think you can look at the 90s. You can even look at the early 2000s. You can even look at this Vegas and Seattle, more recent expansion for the NHL, and say it's gone pretty well for the most part for the NHL. Expansion has been a successful thing to this point, but how much more can the NHL reasonably expand before it starts to become an issue?
Well, I look at it many different ways. Obviously the original 6 back then, when you look back, there wasn't that many people playing hockey, you know what I mean, to what it is today. I think the European invasion, and when I say invasion, it's with all the respect in the world to all the talent that came from overseas. I would say late 80s it kind of started, and then early 90s. Like my draft, 1990, Yager was a big deal because he was like, I don't remember, it was Yager's second or third or whatever. Oh, and Nolan was first, but a lot of European players came over. You know what I mean? There was way more percentages of players. Therefore, the talent never got, thinner, or it wasn't diluted, whatever you want to call that. So, and now it's such a, just even in the U.S. alone with the 1980 Miracle on Ice, and obviously all the expansions in hockey, the Gretzky trade hockey in California, to what it is today. I mean, the number of people that play hockey in the U.S. now is just crazy compared to what it was back then. So, the more and more there's hockey players to choose from. So I think the talent, is still there, but now to what point? You know what I mean? Like you were saying, 40. It's like, I mean, it was 21 when I got drafted. I was looking back at it the other day, and I'm like, that's crazy. There's 32 teams now. That's 11 more. So is it crazy to think that, in a span of like 20 years, there could be another, like you're saying, 8 more? Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's, it makes sense. And now we got Houston and Atlanta and all those places, right? I mean, all those times and those years you had 2 teams in Toronto. Remember they were talking about putting a new one in Hamilton, and but I mean, what's the difference? New York City's got, the Islanders, the Rangers right across the river. I mean, everybody's right there. I can see it. Do I think that That's right. AWOL's talking about the defect, people defecting. That's right. You know what I mean? Like the Russians and the Czechs and, like the Stasnys and, they left in the trunk of a car and, they got to go to Quebec City and through Vienna and all those places. So it was crazy. Now, do I think that getting to 40, uh, you know my answer. I tweeted at you today, like I'm still mad they changed the red line rule. So yeah, I don't like it when there's expansion. I'm not a player anymore, you know what I mean? So I don't like it. As a player, you love it because it's like more jobs, more opportunity. So I don't know. I mean, do I think it's possible? Yes. Do I like it? No. It's going to be a lot of teams, you know what I mean? And, we'll see what happens, but I wouldn't be surprised by any means that it at least gets to 35, 36 here coming up shortly.
40's a lot. I just think when you start looking at the available options in terms of cities that don't currently have an NHL franchise, you'd most certainly have to recycle cities that they've tried and failed in the past. Atlanta's easy. Houston is one that I think makes a lot of sense just from a population standpoint. Also, like what we'll talk about later with some of the, if you were to expand, some potential shakeups that could come from like moving a certain team from the west to the east. If you add Houston, it gets kind of interesting with what you could do with some of the Midwest teams. But I don't know. 40 just feels like a stretch to me. I think it's inevitable that they push it. But I mean, you look at the number, you're on par with the NFL right now. You have two more teams than both the NBA and the MLB, although the NBA is probably going to get to 32 in the next couple of years here as well. 40 feels like a point where you'd be diluting the product to me. I think realistically on a year to year basis, maybe there are certain years where it booms and whatnot. But I don't know. It's interesting. Like there's a lot of fun ones you can throw out. Like you mentioned a couple of good ones. Milwaukee was one that came to mind for me, just given it's fairly comparable, about 500,000 people, like to a lot of the cities that get thrown out. Quebec City's right around that, according to Google, so take it with a grain of salt. But I just think in terms of quality options, you'd be stretching yourself pretty thin once you get past that 35, 36 point.
Yeah.
By the way, Milwaukee, hey, great call, Milwaukee, sneaky little town. One of my favorite towns on the scouting circuit. I love going there. Instead of going through Chicago, you go park yourself there, get a rental car. Milwaukee Admirals have been an unbelievable franchise in the American League. Obviously, the Brewers and then the NBA being there, but right on the river there, I love a simple airport. I used to love parking myself there and then driving to Chicago to see the Hawks and driving to Rockford to see the Hawks farm team. But always getting back to Denver through Milwaukee because I just felt it was easier. It was a cool city. And that's a good call by you. It's a sneaky little town there. I didn't mind that place at all.
They love the Badgers. You've got the natural Midwest rivalries that could develop out of it. I mean, if you're going to point out that there's probably a lot of like Blackhawks and Wild and whatever fans already established in Milwaukee, but I don't think you'd have the same issues that you'd have, like that they had in Atlanta, for instance, where it's like there's not necessarily an established fan base there. They support the hell out of the Badgers hockey program. I think there's a lot of youth hockey participation in the state. That was just one that came to mind that I hadn't seen floated a ton.
It's a fine line, right? Like he said, what are you gaining from expansion? If you expand into Hamilton, those are all already hockey. Everyone in the Toronto greater area is already a hockey fan if they're going to be a hockey fan. You're not gaining new fans by creating a team in Hamilton. You take some of these other options, a Wisconsin, maybe. Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of Blackhawks fans there, but there's probably some market to be gained there. Atlanta, I think, in theory, there's some market to be gained there, but they've tried it twice. Like, realistically, is it just not there, or has it been bad ownership? I think there's probably some of both in that conversation. Bettman really has created a legacy for himself that has shaped the Sun Belt as part of the hockey culture. I'm sure he wants a team back in Arizona. So there's all of these teams here, but the question then kind of becomes what you were talking about, Justin. If you get to 40 teams, that's an additional 8 teams of 23 roster spots. So that's what, 180, 190 roster spots that need to be filled. Now, obviously, you're not going to go from 32 to 40 overnight, but Yes, you'll have some expansion draft stuff. You need to fill those spots, and I'm pretty big into prospects. I'm pretty big into minor league hockey. There are not 180 dudes out there right now ready to play in the NHL that are not already in the NHL. I will tell you that currently. So I don't think it fits. I think expansion is a cool idea. And I guess I can't really argue with what has happened, right? Vegas had success immediately. There was no doubt that that was a team that figured it out and put it together. And you even look at Seattle. Vegas had the advantage of these new rules. They really squeezed every ounce of value they could. Seattle didn't. They didn't have all these crazy, wacky trades from teams that didn't know what they were doing. And they still managed to make the playoffs in their second year, right? They still managed to make the second round because the Avs choked. But they still had a pretty early playoff appearance in their existence. Yes, they've fallen off now. These last couple of years hasn't been good, but at least when it comes to Vegas and Seattle, it seems like the league has absorbed the expansion. So I think that's part of why we're all expecting a Houston or wherever ends up being the next city.
Where would you put one, Rudo? Like, if you just for shits and giggles here, like if you, hey, this is a city, we threw out Milwaukee. I think you tweeted Omaha or something at one point. Nebraska in the Toyota chat could be interesting. Population wise, I don't know. But like, where's somewhere you would like to see have hockey?
I know Kansas City has been a pretty popular choice. I think I made a tweet about this the other day that, I was just kind of firing from the hip, and you mentioned it earlier, Justin. If you put 3 or 4 teams in the Mountain Time Zone, or at least like the Western Central Time Zone, it could do a lot for the travel that is such a struggle right now in the West. Like, he talks about it all the time. It's 2 completely different worlds traveling in the East and West. Kansas City, I think, would be viable. Obviously, but getting back into Arizona, I think, would be viable if you didn't have Alex Morello as the owner, which he's gone now. So I'm not saying
Phoenix feels inevitable down the line. Like how many cracks they took at Atlanta and how important it is to Bettman specifically to be in. And I mean, obviously, Arizona's had a track record with producing talent and whatnot. Mm-hmm. People threw out Portland. I guess they could make sense given you're in Seattle, second biggest city in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, you start building the Northwest division at that point with Portland, Seattle, Vancouver. You could maybe throw Calgary and Edmonton in with them if you wanted, which we'll talk about that in a little bit too. If you wanted more California teams, you could do San Diego. You could maybe try to do Sacramento.
San Fran,
there's a couple
the Bay
of
Area.
There.
I mean,
they have San Jose already. It's a little. They could. I mean, there's the population to fit 2 teams there if you wanted. But again, what are you gaining if you're the NHL? I threw out both OKC and Albuquerque. I get it. There's not massive populations in those places. It's not maybe the most sensical places. What I will say is OKC has had my minor league hockey team for a very long time, that they do pretty okay. And the other side of it is the NHL has never been afraid to be the first organization into cities. Yeah, Vegas was a slam dunk, but still, they were the first ones to go back into that city. I don't think the NHL is that afraid of trying things when it comes to expanding the game, but
Albuquerque is interesting because you get part of Texas on board potentially as well. It gives you another team in the West. It's only just because I've been doing all this college football realignment stuff and looking at all these schools and their cities. Albuquerque, New Mexico as a state are very poor and underfunded, so there could be some hurdles there in terms of getting people to like pay for tickets. And I love Albuquerque. Like, the food is great. This isn't me trying to put the city down or anything like that. It's honestly kind of a hidden gem, but that would be interesting. I'm with you on that. They need more teams in this region of the country just to keep building interest, to help some of the travel stuff, and then it makes it more of a fun conversation of like, well, how could we shake up some of these divisions or maybe eliminate them altogether?
You're the guy on the East Coast. Do they need? Are there cities that are missing teams in the East outside of, I know, Quebec City, I know, but outside of that,
Yes.
are there really any teams in the East that need to be added?
Well, if you're looking north of the border, Quebec would be one, yes. South of the border, I mean, I don't know. I mean, are you thinking of one, Justin? Like, I
I mean, they've had Hartford, obviously, but that's a really small city. I think it's like
it's
150,000
tiny.
people.
I
Yeah.
played there. I played there against them, not for them. So yeah, in the mall, the Hartford Civic Center, right in the mall. Yeah, it's sandwiched between Boston and New York, and it's like, yeah, it's not a lot of population and corporate dollar there, but
I
I
guess
love being
Baltimore,
there.
maybe. I mean, you've
Yeah,
got DC already, but it's a city that supports multiple other, pro franchises. It's substantial size. Again, I don't really know how much you're gaining at that point. I think everybody in the region probably already has an established team, but
Yeah,
it could
Bal-
work.
Baltimore Skipjacks, American League back then. I played there too.
not really East, more Midwest. Well, not more. Yeah, it is Midwest, full stop. But the only city that I really feel like there might be a gap is you look at something like Indy.
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, I mean they've got a great downtown too, so it. I feel like it'd be a place that could work well for like doing events centered around the team and stuff. Like there's Indy hosts the Super Bowl, the Final Four. They host all these events because they've got this great downtown that's all designed around basically hosting sporting
Yeah.
events. So the infrastructure's there. Could be fun.
Yeah, that's about all that I see, other than obviously the Quebec City and Atlanta for the East. It gets tough after that. Do want to continue this conversation, but we have to take our first break of the show. So let's make sure we are hitting that and paying our bills. Make sure we're not going out of business here, as we are. Brought to you by the amazing folks over at First Bank. If you're looking for banking that plays at your pace, whether you're tailgating, grabbing halftime snacks, or catching the game from the couch, First Bank is in your corner. With their secure, easy-to-use mobile banking app, you can check your balance, split the tab for stadium nachos, and stay on top of your money anytime, anywhere. It's like having a financial MVP in your pocket, and here's the play that pays. You could earn up to $300 when you open a new First Bank checking account. Use it to score tickets to events, like I was mentioning. It's easy money, and I don't really know what else to tell you on that front. Whatever keeps your game day going, make sure you're doing it with First Bank. First Bank makes managing your money feel like a win. There are no games when it comes to managing your money, just solid tools to help you stay in control right from your phone. If you're ready to take your banking game to the next level, head to efirstbank.com/bonus. That's efirstbank.com/bonus. Of course, certain restrictions and requirements apply. Member FDIC. And once you're taking care of your money the right way, make sure you're also getting with Mando and taking care of your body the right way. Mando out here, men's deodorant brand that is actually wanting you to smell good in all the right places. Look, some of us are stinky. I get it. I'm stinky sometimes. But Mando has you covered, from pits to belly buttons to balls to butt cracks to grundles and more. Mando will make sure you get the good scents smelling from all portions of your body. With scents like bourbon leather, clover woods, Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport, they make sure that you smell the way you want to smell, and they've got you fully covered. It's designed by a doctor who was watching BO get misdiagnosed often and mistreated often, so they make sure that they're doing it the right way. You can go get their starter pack today and get $5 off that starter pack with code DNVR. That's 40% off their starter pack with that exclusive DNVR code. Comes with 4 products, including a solid stick and cream tube deodorant, as well as 2 free products of your choice, like a mini body wash or deodorant wipes and other options too. And it all comes with free shipping. So go get it today. Use that DNVR code at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. And of course, let them know we sent you over there. Use that DNVR code to say, hey, DNVR was out here, getting you to smell fresher, stay drier, and boosting your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. I want to stick with this expansion conversation, but there are a couple of other topics I wanted to get into. Number one, expansion draft design. With Seattle and Vegas, they went through a pretty massive overhaul. He has talked about a lot about the old expansions where protections were so deep that even he was protected in an expansion draft. which like earned it. That's a dude who was playing some hockey, but the modern expansion rules are teams are going to lose a guy that's an actually NHL player with the modern expansion rules. My question is that enough? Are we comfortable with where expansion is at? Do they need to be even more aggressive? Do you need to give teams a top 6 caliber guy? Or should we back it off? Maybe it's too aggressive, and you guys think that the new teams might need to struggle a little bit when they first start?
Well, a couple things. I want to rewind for a second. Ian was talking about Halifax. What a city, by the way. What a freaking city. I love that part of the world. Great people. Maritimers are awesome. So, yeah, is it big enough? I don't know. It certainly does well in the CHL, right? In the Quebec League. So, and then I can't
Population
stop.
is pretty small, but
That's my point. I mean, again, Quebec City, 300,000, right? So it's, again, I don't know. I don't know the population of Halifax, but would they support it? Absolutely. And then Chuck, I'm mad at Chuck right now. He keeps talking about Hartford and great logo, and it's stuck in my head. You know what's stuck in my head, right? Brass Bonanza. I mean, you'd jump on that ice. You'd jump on that ice back then, and I'd tell you one thing. I didn't wear a helmet, and warm up, and the hair was flowing, and it was so fun. The Brass Bonanza is the best, man. Every time I drive on the highway by Hartford, I put the song on. So, Chuck, I'm mad at you because it's stuck in my head right now. I can't get it away. So, but to answer your question, to get back, I do believe for the price you pay, for the price they've paid, the last couple teams, which we Seattle and Vegas. I mean, I hope you have access to better players than back then. Those teams, in the midst of my start, I don't remember because I was too young, so I didn't need to be protected. It was San Jose, it was Anaheim. You know what I mean? And it was, I mean, you had to dig pretty deep, to get rosters. Those teams were horrendous. Ottawa, horrendous. I mean, absolutely horrendous. And then later on, my career was Columbus and Mini. And yeah, even I was protected, that you're saying. And I was so mad to that one year because I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Why are they protecting me? You know what I mean? Like, I thought I had a shot at going to Mini, but guys that they got sometimes were like unrestricted guys that ended up not signing at the end of the, remember we had to be 31 to be UFA back then. And so they picked up a little bit better than, let's say, that Ottawa expansion draft, but it was still horrendous. That's why it took those teams years to get on the map. Now, I think those teams, for the price they paid, the last two, I think it's fair. I think on the one end, Vegas did an unbelievable job at it. No one knew what to expect. It's the salary cap era, so teams saw an opportunity to dump contracts, and that's how they played their cards. And they were unbelievable at it. They were unbelievable. If you ever bored one day, go back and see how Vegas did it. It was unbelievable. They put teams to sleep. Some teams fell in the trap. Now, too bad for Seattle, because a couple years later, it's their turn, and then teams were like, yeah, don't overthink this thing. Let them pick the player and move on, because too many teams made so many mistakes, costly mistakes, and they look bad mistakes on their organization. And where Seattle, people were more like, hey, whatever, just pick my guy. I don't care who you pick, and we'll move on. And I think they did the best they could. And somewhere, somehow, they made the playoffs in their second year. So it had to be pretty good still. I think it's fair. And I think that you have stuff at your disposition, and you have picks, and there's a lot you can do. I think Vegas has been masterful at it, whether you like the Vegas Golden Knights or not. They've used it to their advantage, and to have a window of, what is it, 7 out of 8 years playoffs. So for an expansion team, a Stanley Cup final, a final championship, in those, that's pretty crazy. So Seattle has not been that good compared to Vegas, but it's still been pretty good. It has not been the Minnesota Wild, Columbus Blue Jackets, Ottawa Senators, if you go back deeper. So I do believe for the price you pay, it's fair. I wouldn't touch anything if you were going to have an expansion tomorrow. I wouldn't touch anything. I think it's good the way it is. You certainly don't want to make it. Tiff's going to be proud of me right now, but like the PWHL, right? Which I thought was absurd. You know what I mean? Like, I think you were able to, whatever the rules were, like protect like 3 people and everybody else is getting, like, it's like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, everyone's moving and switching teams. That's crazy in my book, but not sure I would have done it differently. But I think the way it is now is perfect. And again, they keep talking about it. You know it's coming. 12 to 24 months, you're going to have 2 more.
Yeah, I do think it's coming, but just for the record, the old system that you're talking about when you were first breaking into the league, San Jose Sharks had incredible expansion draft names such as Guy Lafleur, who was retired at the time that they drafted him. So
that's right. I forgot.
that was the caliber of what it was before. So
Buddy,
you don't have to like it, but if you're gonna expand,
I was awful my last few years. I mean that. And I listen. Trust me. This is not like a pity conversation. I was awful, and I was protected. So think about that one. So there was no reason to protect me, but they have to go deeper than me. It's like, wow. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't make any sense. And it's not fair because then it takes too long to get your franchise going. Where I think now, do your homework, do it right, and you have an opportunity to jump right into the mix, right? They call that the mix. Montreal used that term this year. They want to be in the mix, come playoff time. They want to be there in the mix, So expansion teams, if you do it right, you're able to get in the mix. Absolutely. And again, I agree with the price you pay. With the price you pay, I hope you're getting better players than myself, so.
Yeah, I mean, the NHL, you have a vested business interest, obviously, and these teams kind of hitting the ground running, creating some traction, generating a fan base within the city. I don't think it should come at the expense of other teams, which is where it gets a little bit tricky. But like, they've got to be able to snag some guys and fill out the roster. And I think the way they have it established now is pretty fair. Like, you get to protect the top couple guys on your team, but yeah, there's probably going to be 2-3 guys out there that you have to leave in limbo and essentially hold your breath that they don't snag them. But that's the cost of expansion. There's no perfect way to do it. So it's just one of those, like, I don't like how it sounds like things used to go, and that makes sense as to why teams like Ottawa and Columbus and some of these other teams just had such a hard time, generating any type of traction whatsoever. Must have been like going, backwards uphill, like in the rain and all that. But I just, I don't know. Like, you've got to give the teams a chance to be somewhat relevant, because what's the excitement of, oh man, we added all these teams and then they all suck. So like they need access to talent.
And you could start right now. I'm telling you, you talk to front office people, they're already starting to think, oh, what if there's an expansion? You start preparing. And there's always been loopholes, whatever you want to call them, because guys are smart. They think ahead. Like even the Avs back then, quick, like 10-second story. Like, I don't remember what the rules were, but you had to expose a goalie again. So they made a trade, look it up, for Rick Tabarachi. And then they brought him up for one game. I think he played one period and then threw him back in the minors. And that's the goalie they exposed because he had technically played for the Avs. And then, so many things were going on back then where all of a sudden you can't do those stupidities. Not that Rick wasn't a good player. Like he'd been an NHLer before, but, they didn't want to lose. I don't remember. Was it Mark Denis at the time? He ended up going to Columbus on a trade anyway, but because of that kind of sort of thing. But there's so many things you can do, and teams are already trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? Already trying to go, how are we going to go around? When you have a team like Anaheim or, Montreal guys with a lot of young roster players, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, if there is an expansion, we're in trouble here in 2 years. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
it is what it is.
Everything has a downside, right? It can be hard when you've built a super deep team and you feel good about it and you have to give up a guy. But yeah, the cost of business for sure. And depending on where you draw the line, expansion continues to be good for the NHL. I do want to talk about other potential ramifications of expansion here, but we are at our second break. So let's make sure we do that first, and then we'll get into some divisional realignment, perhaps, as we are brought to you by Bet365. Make sure you're getting with Bet365 today. Use the DNVR 365 code when you sign up. When you do that and you add $10 to your account, you bet $5 on anything, win or lose that bet, you get $150 in bonus bets through Bet365. Hockey and basketball season may be over, but you can still bet on baseball. They still have tons of other sports that you can get yourself into to have some fun. Go join with them. Get those bonus bets. It's free money to play around with. Have a good time over with Bet365. They've got a bunch of amazing boosts, whether it's boosted parlays or specific bets. You can jump in with them. We even have the occasional DNVR bet on there, although, I mean, the Rockies have been okay. You know, this hot streak has lasted longer than I thought it would for them. They're still horrible, but maybe they'll win. Maybe you can dream on hitting that bet on the Rockies of them winning. Who knows? Whatever you do, make sure you're doing your betting with Bet365. Again, use that DNVR 365 code on a new account to get $150 in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with Bet365. And of course, you must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today. And then, once you've hit on some of those bonus bets, you might have a little bit of extra beer money. So it's time to choose chill and go get yourself an ice cold Coors Light. Mountains turn blue on the bottle or the can to let you know it's ice cold and ready to drink. It do officially be grilling weather. I know, J. Mike, you were grilling the other week. I've had some friends doing cookouts. It's finally here. You can sit out in the backyard, relax, enjoy yourself an ice cold Coors Light. But the coolest part is, you don't even have to get up and get it. Of course, they are available in pretty much every liquor store in the country. But you can sit down on your couch, go to CoorsLight.com/DNVR, and get it delivered right to your front door, thanks to Instacart. So jump in with Coors Light, get it delivered. It's the easiest way to get your ice-cold beer and choose chill. Of course, you got to make the most out of the times you choose chill and choose Coors Light. You can get it delivered, again, thanks to Instacart at CoorsLight.com/DNVR. And when you do drink, of course, choose Coors Light. Cold, lagered, cold filtered, cold packaged for a smooth finish. Please drink responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. J. Mike, you fortunately or unfortunately have a lot of experience with divisional realignment, with what CSU has gone through in multiple sports over the last couple of years. When you're looking at the NHL, I'll throw the easy one out there. Nashville should be in the East, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the map, it makes so much sense, especially when you potentially get another team back in Arizona or Houston or Portland or wherever it might be. They just it basically feels like Detroit, like still being in the West. Back in the day, you're gonna have all the same issues from a scheduling standpoint. Those long multi-time zone trips out west, like it would make so much sense to move them to the East, and it'd be so easy. Like some of the moves you have to get kind of wonky to make it happen. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Where it gets more complicated is maybe not necessarily East-West swaps, but do we start considering just removing the divisional system from the NHL? At a certain point, do you just have an Eastern Conference and a Western Conference? When does that start to make more sense? Because, yeah, like, I get it. NHL has long been trying to manufacture rivalries with teams playing each other a bunch, but at what point does, Colorado is regularly traveling as far out as Chicago, it stops to make sense financially when you could be sending them to an Arizona, to a Utah, even to California is a closer trip than it is, or probably about the same distance of a trip as it is to Chicago. So look, we'll touch the playoffs of it in a second, but just the option of removing divisions entirely. What do you guys think about it?
I'm intrigued by it.
No,
Yeah,
go, Jim. No, go. You go.
No, just I think the I mean, obviously the playoff implications are significant in that because you don't end up with the Avalanche Star Series potentially, 3 times in
Yeah.
5 years or whatever, but in LA and Edmonton every single year of our lives. But
Yeah.
like you're just taking, in theory, the best teams at that point. Like I think it gives you more flexibility from a regular season scheduling standpoint. Maybe you can play some other teams a little bit more frequently. I guess obviously if you're in a division that has teams that are, relatively close from a geography standpoint, like there are cost benefits to playing each other over and over again because you're cutting down on some of those long distance trips. But I I'm for it just because I think it helps remove some of the potential inequity that you get by having divisions that are significantly more stacked than other ones, and it just takes some of the wonkiness out of that process, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would. I agree. I would just wipe out the divisions. I would just go East West, 16-16 right now, as it stands, um, and then you go 1 through 8 in the playoffs. Or if you decide to get a play in, like in baseball, whatever it is, fair, fine, whatever. But I think you go back to 1 through 8, which I like better. You go East and West and move on. I mean, that's just the way I like it. I think it gets a little too complicated. I don't think it really matters, to be honest with you. Like, oh, Avalanche playing against Nashville. I'm like, divisional rivalry. I'm like, whatever. I think it's a dumb title. Give me a game against, like again, a good team in the Western Conference. I'm excited. You know what I mean? So I'm not for
You
the
can't
division.
shoehorn rivalries. Like they
Yeah.
form organically, and
Yeah.
that's
From
one of the things
playoffs
that
and
college sports struggle with is because they've had so much movement. They're like, oh, this will be a rivalry, and you try and force it, and it doesn't work. Like CU in the Pac-12, they were in a conference for over a decade, never had a single rivalry. The Pac-12 tried really hard to force CU Utah down everybody's throat, but nobody cared because nobody was into it. There was no established history there. There's no bad blood, but like you can generate that by playing, I guess, and that's what the NHL's hoping. You keep having these teams bash each other in the head over and over again. That'll create something, but there's just something about it naturally that forms rivalry over time versus something that's just kind of shoved down your throat. And I think that's what this whole division thing has become, where it's just like you're going to get Colorado, Dallas, and you're going to like it. You're going to get LA, Edmonton every year, and you're going to appreciate it. And it's like, do we? I don't know if anybody's like, oh man, give me more of that.
it's more. I agree. They grow organically from, like you said, from a former playoff series, two teams going at it, being the best in the West or whatever, or from a hit or a play, Avalanche Red Wings. Um, then it becomes. I mean, there's nothing close in proximity. I mean, obviously, Detroit was in the Western Conference at the time, but now they're in the East. But that was the biggest rivalry for me of the last 25, 30 years in hockey. There's nothing close to it. And it wasn't the same division. It wasn't proximity. It wasn't, no, it was two good teams going at it. And then it was events or playoff series that, 96 when they prevented their record team that they had regular season, the Detroit Red Wings, and then the Avs beat them in 6. McNichols was so loud, I guess. That's how you form rivalries. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's because it's like, oh, we're right next to each other. Yeah, in college I can see it. You know what I mean? Like whatever, BUBC, DUCC. You know what I mean? Like I get it. It's cool. Like it's right there. But other than that, I think for me in pro sports, it's good teams and it's organically grown. That's it.
Look, the only organization any of these teams have a rivalry with is with the league at this point. Like the NHL, this last season is the first time in over a decade where the division winners were actually the best teams in their conference. It's been over a decade of a team that doesn't win their division, but is better than everyone else in the other division and gets a lower seed and has to play the 1 seed just because they happen to be in the same division as them before they get to the conference finals. It's dumb. The system is dumb. It does not make sense to do it this way if you are trying to get the best matchups and the best quality hockey. everybody agrees. Avs Dallas was like one of the best series of the playoffs, and it was over at the end of round one. Like, why are we doing this? It makes no sense to me. And getting rid of divisions is a pretty easy way to do that. And it's also a pretty easy way to have your schedule make more sense. Like, you can stop doing some of these silly back-to-backs where it's like, well, they've got to play Dallas 5 times, so we'll just send everybody through Dallas and Colorado, and this thing will happen. You don't have to do it. It's unnecessary. You just play Dallas 3 times a year. It's fine. It doesn't matter. And yet the league is insistent on all of these systems that allegedly create parity that I'm just not even convinced work. So I don't know. I'm just salty about this, I guess.
Is there any validity to, because this is how it was explained to me by a couple of national guys when I was out in Dallas, because I just kept asking questions about this. Like, what do you think? You know, how do you guys like this? Like, wouldn't you prefer this to be a Western Finals matchup? And they agreed that's a fair, take you can have, but they just kept pointing out that the NHL is desperately trying to compete with like the NBA and some of these other leagues from an exposure standpoint. And they feel that if you have all these epic first round matchups like Colorado, Dallas, that you're going to have way better numbers on the first round than you would otherwise, which is maybe true, I guess. But then like you can throw that right back around and like you have a less interesting rest of your playoffs though. So I don't know. I've heard it explained to me and like I understand some of what they're saying, but I think the cons far outweigh the pros.
It feels like an easy solution there that the NBA has found, right? Have play-in tournament games or whatever. Yeah. Those are meaningful to teams because they can say they made the playoffs, and then their first round series they can get absolutely cooked by whatever the top seed is, and you're done with that. But you get some excitement and reason to tune in then, and then you can build momentum into the big series, which I think is certainly for rivalries it's far more important, but just for the build of a playoffs, I think it makes more sense to, you want the best teams to be the ones left standing, but I don't know. I digress. We do have other topics we need to get into, specifically draft stuff still, but not expansion draft. And I wanted J Mike on for this one too, because you have walked through the draft process for multiple sports, for multiple different college kids. And I want to kind of compare what you've experienced with these guys to what you get in the NHL. Because you look at the NBA, even the best players, you have the one and done rule. You have to go to college for a year, or go to Euro basketball, whatever. You have the NFL where realistically you have to go to 3 years of college before you can get drafted. And then you have the NHL where you turn 18 and you're eligible, buddy. It doesn't matter. You can get drafted today. Is that okay? AJ talks a lot about thinking they should extend the draft age up a year at least. Does it make sense for hockey to be drafting kids at 18, or do you think they should follow suit with what some of these other leagues have done?
I mean, you can go to war at 18, so I'm inclined to say if,
fair enough,
you can do that kind of thing, like you're probably mature enough to make that decision. I think the biggest benefit that the NFL has in having the players having to be 21 years old is that you have the best developmental system in the world in college football, and you don't even have to pay for it. They're spending all the resources developing the talent for you. You get to watch them grow in front of your eyes. You have all this generated interest, but none of it is actually under your jurisdiction or liability. The NFL will do certain things to kind of, help generate policies and push things along the way they want them. But I mean, it kind of depends on what you want, right? Like if you're the NHL, do you have a vested interest in creating more college hockey interest? Maybe that helps the whole growth of the sport, having some of these NHL caliber guys be in the spotlight at that level. It could help some growth there. But I mean, given that you have the AHL and the ECHL, you have that structure that you don't have in the NFL. I don't really think there's any incentive to change things.
Yeah. I mean, back then it was 20, right? Again, I'm talking about years and years ago. Then it became 18, which was weird. Everybody thought that was weird and crazy, and their babies. And well, first and foremost, if you push the draft back to 20 like it used to be, then there'd be less mistakes at the draft. That's for sure. Because man, oh man, it is a tough age. Again, it's on projection, and of course, which is fair. That's part of the job. But 18 to 20, 18 to 22, you're such a different for most teenagers. It doesn't happen that quick. You know what I mean? So you're missing the boat on many guys. Um, I I wouldn't mind that it goes back to 20, honestly. And you have, just like in juniors, you have the exception rule. Like, I think whoever had it last, was it Wright that had it or whatever in the OHL? I don't remember who had it, but I mean, there's always like somebody you can apply for it, and then the board lets you in, and all the reasons and this and this and that. So there's always an exception, like the McDavids of the world, the Celebrini, whatever. Usually those first overall picks, they're always a cut above the rest. McDavid, maybe you do the exception, you let them in. And then I just think it would make for a way better, I don't know, a way better draft, a tighter draft, more like shoe-in guys than now. And I just think you're such a kid at that age. Like I just almost feel, I understand the war thing, like you can go to the war and all that kind of stuff. I get that, but I'm talking about to develop as a pro athlete. Oh my Lord! I mean,
How
those
do teams
ages are
look at it though?
crucial.
Because it's drastically different, like per sport. For instance, like the NBA, I covered somebody, Neat Clifford, who's 23 years old, which is on the older side of basketball prospects. He was in college for 5 years. And that's probably why he won't go, top 10, top 15. There's a chance he goes in the low teens. But NBA teams would rather have that raw prospect that they can mold with all the physical traits at 18, 19 years old. And they know they're going to fail on a lot of them. But in their mind, it's best that we're working with them rather than, going off to college, potentially picking up bad habits, whatnot. The NFL, though, like we said, again, they don't have that developmental league. Like, it's different. They want that larger time period for those players to develop. They want to have the track record that they can go back and look at. Like, they don't want somebody who's like, they want young guys, but they don't want people that are necessarily 18. Where would hockey teams stand, do you think? Like, do you think they would rather have guys like less chance of missing on them, but they're coming in at 22? Or would they just view it, yeah, we're going to miss on some, but if we take more shots at these 19-year-olds, we'll find the special talent. It'll rise to the top.
Yeah, but I
Does
think
that
with
make
the
sense?
craziness of, yeah, but all the craziness of all the rules right now, NCAA and CHL, and it's crazy, and it's gonna take time to go through it, figure things out there. Talk about loopholes. Those can be so many right now. But now they get the best of both worlds, the NHL teams. They can draft a kid, and he's in the CHL and juniors, and then they're like, however that's going to happen now with the rules, right? You lose the rights to the guy at 20, and then but he decides to go and play in college hockey. Now, do you keep the rights if he's going to play college hockey at
It's going to be
University of
complicated.
Denver? It's complicated, but if you can, if you're an NHL team, you're laughing because you're like, this is great. You got to remember, hockey different than basketball, football, all the junior leagues and everything, and then everybody laughs about. You talk to college student like parents, they're always laughing. They're like, oh yeah, I mean, like, my daughter, she's got like a dude that's got. Looks like he's 36 years old and he's a freshman, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, he must play hockey, you know what I mean? Because everybody makes fun of it because, hockey, a lot of times you're the 20, 21-year-old freshman and, in college, and everyone's laughing at you because they're like, whoa, dude, I mean, are you married with 3 kids? And, so, I mean, it's like, it's a little different. So for you have a place to go where there's, the affiliate systems, I mean, in basketball, it's a little different, right? And same thing with the NFL and all those things. So I think teams would love the fact that, I mean, you'll see next weekend. You'll see next weekend. I mean, those guys are going to get drafted. College teams are waiting right now. They're keeping spots open for the, like, Martone or McKenna or whatever it is. And because they're like, the facilities, University of Denver in our backyard, let's just, again, let's not even talk about BU for a second, but it's like, well, if you're an NHL team, like, and the kid is like, I'm not ready to play in the NHL now. I'm going to the University of Denver. They salivate, the NHL teams. They're like, it's great. This is awesome, because all the facilities they have, to develop and to be a different player by age 19, 20, 21, however long that guy stays in college is a big difference. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm all for, like, bring it back to 20. Screw it, whatever makes sense. Nothing makes sense anymore, especially with the free for all of the NCAA slash junior hockey right now, which is like, it's crazy right now.
I will say it's interesting because I do think the one spot where the NHL does get a little bit of the best of that both worlds is the NHL is a 7-round draft. So it's not the NBA where it's like you have 2 rounds. That's it. Like you gotta pick a guy that can help you today, right now. Whereas the NHL, at least in the later rounds, you can say, yeah, we'll take a shot on this guy. We'll see what happens. We can have a 4 or 5 year timeline on a guy, and it's okay. But the other side of it is there just isn't at 18 for hockey players. A draft class has maybe 5 guys that are going to jump to the NHL right away, and that would be like a lot if they played a full season. Whereas you look at NBA, there's the G League, at least there's something there, but then you go to the NFL and it's like, yeah, if they can't jump in right now, you're not getting drafted. Like that's just not a thing that's going to happen. So I think Chuck said it in the chat. It could help the NHL if they pushed it back and had more players that made the jump immediately. You don't end up with all these players that it's like, well, we'll see in a couple years. Like we're hockey junkies on this channel, on this show. Obviously, if I was told to chat, hey, how many of you even know who Cullen Potter is? And some of them would say yes. But if you asked a random person on the street who Cullen Potter was, they'd go, who the hell is that? And he's probably going to get drafted in the late first round in the upcoming draft. Whereas if you asked anyone on the planet who Johnny Barron was before that draft, everybody knows every NFL prospect from round 1 to like round 7, the whole thing. Everybody knows all of them because they're about to have an impact potentially on their team. So
one more thing.
Made their draft such a spectacle. Like it's a year-round. It's its own thing. Like outside of the NFL season, at this point, people have entire shows and careers dedicated specifically just to the NFL draft year-round.
Yep.
I'll just say I've said it before on this channel, on our channel. My draft 1990. The only reason, and I say that with all sincerity, only reason I got drafted, being from Montreal, Canada, not playing in the CHL, but playing high school hockey in the United States, which the rules didn't apply to me, but it applied to guys like Yannick Perreault and guys like that were prolific scorers in the Quebec League there in the QMJHL. But so I want to say it's for that year only, or maybe the year before. I don't remember. But if you were 18, your first year of eligibility, and you were playing in the CHL, which is the Dub, the O, or the Quebec League, you had to be drafted in the first 3 rounds. You could not get drafted after. And that's why I got drafted, because what they did is they turned themselves to high school hockey in the United States. I just happened to be a Canadian playing the high school hockey, and there was no rules for me, so then I could get drafted. It was crazy, but that's one of the only reasons why I got drafted, because teams were, well, if we don't take these guys, then we got to turn ourselves to something else, right? So funny, maybe you'll see that again. Maybe you might see that again, a little bit of a hybrid system like that. You know what I mean? Where I don't know. We'll see. Again, there's so much work to do. There's so much work to be done between the CHL, NCAA, and the NHL. And that's why Commissioner, not Commissioner, but Assistant Commissioner Bill Daly didn't meet with, but last few weeks and met with the NCAA. And there's so many things to go through because everything is out the window right now.
Hey, look, we're all North American. Can we at least agree that the draft system is better than what they do over in Europe, where sports organizations sign children at 6 years old and just keep them in their systems forever? And You
We're getting
have
close to
crazy.
seeing that go away because now the NIL colleges are stealing all those players. So like in
That's
European
true.
basketball and soccer, they're spending 15 years developing these kids, and then the University of Alabama's like, "How's 1.2 million sound, buddy? Come on over."
Well, but even in college hockey, like, guys, what is it, the number thrown out of McKenna, like whatever, 250 or whatever it is, and it's like, okay, and I've seen it. Listen, I'm in it, so I see it. But you can't go to your training camp to your team that drafted you because you can't lose your amateur eligibility. Like, are you serious? Like, but the kid that makes $35 a week in juniors, whatever the number is, they can go to because it's not considered professional, but they can go to the team that drafts them's training camp, where you can't still in college hockey. Again, so many things are going to change here in the next 24 months, but that's one of them. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Nothing makes sense right now.
It's a chaotic time in the NHL for sure. So I don't know. I kind of do think there is something romantic about the NHL draft, just in the sense of you get a little bit more of that unknown, right? You don't have that experience as much in other leagues where it's like, oh, you picked this 7th rounder and he turned into a superstar, and what an unbelievable story. And your scouting is so good. Really, they just get lucky most of the time. But nonetheless, it's still that Cinderella story that honestly, the closest thing in the NBA is Jokic, right? That's like the unbelievable late round pick in the middle of the 2nd round that turned into arguably one of the best basketball players ever. But it doesn't get quite the same. And certainly in the NFL, 9 times out of 10, the guy you're drafting, you pretty much already know what caliber of player they can potentially be. But on the other hand, yeah, there is a lot of chaos there. There is a lot of nonsense where, Eric mentioned, certainly if I was 18 and got drafted, I'd have screwed it up. Not that I was good enough or anything, but in a world where I would have done something stupid and screwed it up. So there's that factor of it. And then there's also, like, you're talking about taking an 18-year-old kid and essentially flipping his life upside down. On the first round of the draft is June 27th, 3 days away. On June 26th, that kid has no idea where he's going to be living next year. Like, that's tough. That's a tough thing to throw onto a kid. He knows he's going somewhere, but he doesn't even know if he's going to the team that drafts him or to their minor league team, or is he staying at college, or is he going to a different junior team? Like, that's a lot to put on a young kid.
It's a lot. And even you rewind the tape a little bit, like, they got the combine for a week in Buffalo, like a few weeks ago. Then before that, some of them were at the U18 tournament, like overseas. And then some of them were at junior championship at Christmas. And then a lot of those kids this weekend, they're going to draft. They're going to get on a plane. Let's say they get drafted by a miracle by the Avalanche in the first round. We all know it's not going to happen because they don't have a pick. But, all of a sudden you go to the draft, and then Sunday you got your gear and you're flying to Denver because it's development camp for a week, right? Then after that, it's like, oh, I get to go home for a week, and then I have to go to USA Hockey, World Junior Camp, right? You know what I mean? And then it's nonstop. And then, oh, I got my training camp coming up to my team, the Avalanche. Do I make the team? Yeah. What did I want? Oh, actually, they don't want me to play junior hockey anymore. They want me to play college hockey. You know what I mean? Where do I go? You know what I mean? So it's a lot. It's a lot, and they're 18. 18. I got a daughter that's 19. I mean, I got Max 21, but it's like, I can't see. I mean, it's crazy. It's so much to put on kids, and boy, they need a good support system. And because you see why it goes sideways sometimes for a lot of kids.
I will
To
say,
be fair, it
Canadian
goes sideways
kids
in college too. Like, I didn't make
Yeah,
the best
true.
decisions in school at 18,
sure.
19 years old,
For
and I had a
sure.
lot of people telling me what I should do.
Guilty.
Yeah.
I will say Canadian kids may be a bit more prepared for that. If you go through the Canadian junior system, in the WHL, you get drafted at
Yeah, it's true.
14. For the
Yeah.
other leagues, it's 15, 16. So it's not like this is unknown to them. For the U.S. kids, for the kids that go through U.S. high school at college, though, Yeah, obviously you uproot your life for college. Lots of kids travel across the country, but there's a certain level of controlling your own destiny there, right? Especially with
You're
high level
picking the school
athletes.
at least.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I don't have great answers for you. I'm not going to pretend like I know what's best for 18-year-old kids. I barely know what's best for me, and I'm 33. So it's just an interesting side of sports that I think often gets overlooked and something to think about. We are out of time for today, though, so we appreciate everyone hanging out with us for this show. With the draft on Friday, we will be live all day for the draft, round 1, and then we'll have a wrap-up show after rounds 2 through 7 on Saturday. So please join us for that. Should be a fun time, and we'll dunk on all the teams that make bad picks as we always do. It's awesome. We are off tomorrow, though, so we appreciate y'all, and we will see you on the next one. This has been the DNVR Avalanche podcast, and it's draft season, baby.
We all silly like the mayor.